Catholic homeschooling can bear so many fruits, both earthly and eternal. Veteran homeschooler Jennifer Smarsh is here to teach us how to grow in virtue through homeschooling.
Welcome to Homeschooling Saints, the podcast that helps you create the homeschool you love for the people you love. Our host is Lisa Mladinich, a Catholic life coach, TV host, best-selling author, and an instructor at Homeschool Connections.
Before we get started, remember to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, click the bell to join our channel. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Lisa Mladinich, and today we're talking with Jennifer Smarsh about how to grow in virtue through homeschooling. Jennifer is, oh my goodness, you're such a veteran homeschooler. Jen, you've been a leader and a coach in the homeschool world while you and Dave have raised 5 girls and moved around quite a bit. So I'm really grateful to have your perspective today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on again. It's good to be with you.
Yeah. Welcome back. So why don't we start, Jen, just by saying a little bit about what we mean by virtues, because that word does get used in a sort of a lot of different ways in our culture, and we have a Catholic understanding of virtue.
That's right. Well, the Catholic understanding of virtue, the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 1833 actually says, a virtue is a habitual and firm disposition to do the good. And the Catholic Church breaks these virtues down into theological and cardinal virtues. So the theological virtues are faith, hope, and charity, while the cardinal virtues are prudence, justice, fortitude, and temperance, which would be more of what I would like to focus on today, particularly fortitude. I feel like as homeschoolers, we often find ourselves looking to curriculum to teach our children virtues. Many Catholic homeschool moms put their children into Little Flowers, where they're learning a virtue every month based on a different saint who exercise that virtue. And so I feel like it's just something that we as Catholic homeschool moms do. And like I said, there's even curriculum for virtue. But what I think we don't realize as homeschool moms is how we are growing in virtue without even realizing it. We've been given this opportunity in our vocation as moms, and especially as homeschoolers, to exercise virtue. And so in particular today, I wanted to talk about fortitude as well as humility. But really, fortitude encompasses so many virtues. So I wanted to mention that one first. So according to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 1837, fortitude assures firmness in difficulties and constancy in the pursuit of the good. It reaches even to the ability of possibly sacrificing one's own life for a just cause. So that's laying down your life for another, right? So fortitude is key. And Father Ripperger's site, Sensus Traditionis, has a list of the virtues. It's broken down beautifully, and I recommend that. I believe that should be in the show notes. Next to the virtue of fortitude, it is labeled the willingness to engage in the arduous. And when I looked up arduous, I generally know the meaning of that word, but I wanted to see what the dictionary had to offer for that. And arduous, the definition is this: demanding great effort or labor, difficult, testing severely the powers of endurance, strenuous. An example for that is a long, arduous, and exhausting war. It also says hard to traverse, climb, or surmount. I feel like that sums up what we do as homeschoolers, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's exhausting. We feel like we've been through the war at times, right? It's an effort in labor. All of those things. I just feel like that really does sum up fortitude and what we do. But I love how each virtue branches off into other virtues. So under fortitude, we have, just to name a few, patience, perseverance, endurance, which is courage, and long suffering. We experience long suffering as mothers a lot. And, we can experience in homeschooling long suffering when a child is struggling. We're trying to do this. Some moms may not want to be homeschooling their children, and they do it out of sheer will because they believe it's what's best for their child. That's a long suffering. And so I just feel like we really practice all of those aspects of fortitude in our day-to-day homeschooling. We need to persevere.
I was just going to say, Jen, I think every mom listening and dads and grandparents who are a part of this journey with their family are nodding their heads. Well, who can't remember a million times when we've experienced or seen our children's experiencing long suffering or patience or having to endure something? That is part of this testing place. In fact, I heard a speaker say recently that resilience is a big word in our culture right now, but resilience doesn't feel like resilience. It feels like frustration and struggle. And so that's important to know, that you don't feel all bouncy and perfect when you're a resilient person or when you're building virtue. It's hard.
It is hard. It's very hard. And while we're trying to teach our children, like I said, we're trying to teach them, but we don't even realize we are growing in virtue. God's given us this opportunity to grow in virtue, and it is hard, but it's our path to heaven. So it's really a gift that we have all these opportunities if we can choose to see it that way, right?
Yes.
With all the persevering we need to do, and when we're exhausted and just want to give up, when we lose hope, and courage, like I said, endurance and courage go together, and that falls under fortitude. And we have to be courageous when the world laughs at us and tells us we're crazy for homeschooling our children, or for even having so many children or being at home with them. And we're exercising these virtues pretty regularly in the day-to-day without even meaning to. We're given the gift of these opportunities.
And I feel like that's a mindset that we need to cultivate. And maybe younger moms newer to homeschooling, suffering with what you're describing, the naysayers and the people who roll their eyes or think we're really out there or missing opportunities to be our fullest selves because we're pouring ourselves out for our families, that this mindset of not being enough can really assail us when we're home, because there's so many messages out in the culture that are lying to us and to our children.
That's right.
So this sense of not being enough is another thing to speak against, to stand against spiritually, but also to endure.
Yes, to endure. And in fortitude, we practice patience daily. All parents know that we're growing in the virtue of patience, right? But, think about how much time we spend waiting when we're homeschooling our children. How much time do we wait? We're waiting for our child to learn a concept. We're waiting for them to finish an assignment so we could get on to the next thing. We're waiting for them to be ready for the day. We're waiting while we teach them to read. Anyone who has taught a child to read knows the level of patience it takes, right? I mean, I had a friend who once said a while back, she said, I have to knit or crochet while the child is practicing reading. I have to have something to do with my hands or I'm going to go crazy, because it just takes a very large amount of patience, right? Yeah. To teach your child to read. So we practice patience all day long. It's just par for the course.
Yeah. I noticed when we were still homeschooling, there were moments when I had other things I wanted to be doing, and there were all the interruptions, right? And I remember noticing now and then when I it's like Velcro ripping, right? You pull yourself away from the thing you want to be focused on to focus on the child. And I remember feeling God's pleasure. It was just a momentary grace that I felt his pleasure in that little death to self, in that act of patience. And so I just want to say that I believe that was a real encounter with God in that moment.
I believe it. I've experienced things like that too. And it's just those grace-filled moments, So like I've said before, we have to pray through these, pray without ceasing, right? Because we can't do these. We are growing in virtue by, naturally as we do this, but we do need to pray for the graces to do it. And I've heard that fortitude is one of the bases, or, it helps us with all the other virtues, because we have to persevere. We have to have fortitude to grow in all the virtues, So it's really important. But probably the most important is humility, right?
Yeah.
So I think we could talk about humility next, maybe. That falls under temperance. Many people don't know that humility falls under the virtue of temperance. I love the little offshoots of all the virtues. And humility is the principal virtue which overcomes pride. And we need that to get to heaven, or we simply need that to get to heaven. So that is the most important, right? I would say that's the most important virtue, because pride moves us away from heaven, and Humility moves us toward heaven. So I feel like that one is pretty key. And Our Lady, aside from God, Our Lady is a prime example of humility, right? I mean, yes, of course, God came down to earth as a baby in a stable, in a feeding trough, right? He made himself small. And so he's obviously a beautiful example of humility. But Our Lady, as a young girl, saying yes to God's, what he asked of her fiat. And she didn't even ask any questions. She asked one question: how can this be, right? But when the angel explained it to her, she just submitted. She submitted everything. And, be it done unto me according to your will, right? She just was the perfect example of humility, and her yes changed everything for us. So I like to look to her as an example of humility, and surrender takes humility. So surrendering our will to him, and we have to do that in many ways in our homeschooling. But I wanted to also mention, she gave us the rosary, of course, and praying the rosary builds virtue. And I don't know if a lot of people are aware of that. There are 15 promises of the rosary, and 2 of those speak directly to virtue. So the third promise states that the rosary shall be a powerful armor against hell. It will destroy vice, decrease sin, and defeat heresies. So if it's destroying vice, then we're growing in virtue, right? And inherently. And then the fourth promise states that the recitation of the rosary will cause virtue to grow and good works to flourish. And I've seen this in my own life, and my children have even experienced this, where they begin praying the rosary and they start to change. And I noticed that for myself. Start changing, and I start noticing things. Years ago, when I started praying a daily rosary, I didn't even realize it was happening, but all of a sudden I started noticing things that I wanted to be doing more for God. And the things that were offensive to God were all of a sudden offensive to me, the music or the TV shows that I might watch. And so the virtue really does come about as we pray the rosary. And within the rosary, many people might not know this as well, but each mystery we're praying for a specific virtue. For example, the Annunciation, the virtue is humility. Some people call it the fruit of the mystery, but they're also the virtues. The Visitation is for charity towards our neighbor. The Presentation is obedience, and so on and so forth. And I think I had sent you the links for the promises and the virtues as well. But, we're praying for virtue, whether we realize it or not, when we offer up the rosary.
Yeah.
So I think that's a beautiful thing. And we've experienced that in our lives.
I love what you said about people changing when they pray the rosary too, because years ago, and I'm in my 60s now, but I was in my 20s and 30s and really struggling with marriage and infertility and all kinds of problems. I became kind of a bitter, shrewish wife. I mean, I was sharp-tongued. I was angry a lot. And when I had my conversion experience and started to pray the rosary, I actually started to pray the rosary just prior to my conversion experience. That's a whole story. When I would pray my rosary, Charlie would know immediately. I would come to him and be affectionate and gentle, and he would tease me. He'd say, "You've been doing your beadwork, haven't you?" Like it was that obvious. If I had just prayed my rosary, I was a very different wife. And
wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that gradually those virtues found traction in me. They were not temporary boosts of grace. They became more habitual. So I just want to say, my hand is in the air waving, yes, yes, you have a witness here. I know what it feels like to be changed by Our Lady's, those graces from the rosary.
Yes, it's amazing. It's amazing to see it, to experience it. And like I said, to hear my children say that they're seeing a difference and feeling a difference and just watching the growth and the change, it's so beautiful. So what a gift, right?
Praise God.
Just, praying the rosary help us grow in this virtue that we're working on all day, every day, right? Anyhow, so for me, I've noticed some ways that we exercise humility and temperance. Humility and temperance are, when we become discouraged, when we lose hope, things don't go our way, the wind gets knocked out of our sails, we feel, it takes humility to face those things, right? It takes humility to face, getting knocked down and getting back up. And we're always having to learn and grow. We don't come into the homeschooling knowing everything, even though you may know a lot. You might even have a degree. in teaching, we still have so much to learn because each child learns so differently. And it's just such a journey. And so we have to humble ourselves and be willing to learn more, be willing to learn new things. And again, humbling ourselves before the world that laughs at us and thinks that we're crazy. And that's an act of, courage and humility to face that. And we have to give up what we might want to do, right? We have to temper those desires of our heart to maybe do something that we would like to do. But this is a season where we're teaching our children. And so we're exercising temperance in that as well. Just putting things on hold. That's more self-denial and sacrifice, which also fall under the virtue of temperance.
I love that. And I feel like, too, whenever we do the countercultural thing out of love for God, where we're submitting, surrendering, being humble in the face of all those voices out there, just pushing back on our choices, I really feel like there are spiritual ramifications to our humble perseverance, that it ripples out into the world, and God uses that and magnifies the effect, that he multiplies it spiritually. And so even though we don't feel it, there's not some sonic boom or something that goes off when it happens. It's there.
Yes, it is. That's very true. It's beautiful. It's a gift, It doesn't feel like it when we're going through all these things. It's those struggles, right? Like we're working these muscles. We just feel like we're just, who knows why we're doing this, right? We get caught in that trap and it's like, this is hard and I have no patience and I failed the day and, just different things that we go through. But really, we're really exercising virtue, and it's doing something. It's doing something in the world. Like you said, it's doing something for our children. It's doing something for us to get us to heaven. It's working out our salvation. And, I never really thought of the vocation in that sense. I was raised with the mindset that I wanted to become a mom and have a big family. And I was raised in a devout Catholic family, but I wasn't really raised with the focus on vocation as much as I've learned since I've been homeschooling my children. So I feel like that's been an education in the vocation, learning about vocation and teaching them the virtues has just taught me those things. So, I've heard it said years ago, we don't really raise our children to be Christian. They raise us to be Christian. And I think it's the same in regard to the virtues. We're teaching them things, but really we're growing in those things as well. And maybe even in larger ways, bigger ways.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody, we have much more coming from Jen Smarsh. We're going to take a short sponsor break. We are talking about growing in virtue through homeschooling. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Walter Crawford.
And I'm Maureen Whitman.
We are the co-founders of homeschoolconnections.com and proud sponsors of the Homeschooling Saints podcast,
which is here to help you homeschool more joyfully, more easily, and more effectively.
We want to thank you for listening.
And we invite you to check out our courses at homeschoolconnections.com.
And now, back to our program.
All right, we're back with Jennifer Smarsh talking about how to grow in virtue through homeschooling. As we start to land the plane, Jennifer, just start to sum it up for us a bit.
All right. Well, so we've touched on the virtue of fortitude and temperance, which is humility is the big one under temperance. And, we were talking about how we need to die to self as a mom and a homeschooler. So we just need to remember to submit our desires and dreams to the Father. We need to ask him to lead us in what's best for our children. They're his children. And, sometimes when we have to change things up, it can be a little blindsiding if, you have a plan and it's not going our way, but that's exercising that virtue of temperance, tempering what we want and, submitting it all to him. Again, that takes humility, but things will work so much better when we surrender to him. Peace is ushered in. But I just wanted to touch on briefly that we've spoken about fortitude and temperance, but even in justice and prudence, in justice, we find devotion. It takes great devotion to do what we're doing. And under the virtue of prudence, we find understanding docility, which is the ability to lead and take counsel from others. We do have to lead and we need to take counsel, right? We need to, ask our friends where we can change things. If our children aren't learning what they need to learn, we need a different curriculum or so on and so forth. and reason as well. So we really are practicing all of those virtues. And we know that we're practicing faith, hope, and charity, right? In addition to these cardinal virtues. So, but the one last thing that I wanted to mention too is that the domestic church is known as the school of human virtue and Christian charity. The Catechism number 1666 states this: the Christian home is a place where children receive the first proclamation of the faith. For this reason, the family home is rightly called the domestic church, a community of grace and prayer, a school of human virtues and of Christian charity.
It's so beautifully said. I love that quote. We do RCIA like every other parish, and that's one of the things that's so beautiful to share. People don't realize. And I remember years ago, the first time I heard that quote, that this is the home. The parents and the children is the first place where the gospel is proclaimed. And it's through, as you've described, the living out of these virtues, as well as the literal proclamation of the faith, but the growth and virtue of the family. What an amazing school of virtue.
Right. Such a gift. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing to be part of it, right? It's an honor to be able to do this for our children.
Yeah, when we realize that in the eyes of the church, things that other people walk right past without noticing are sacred, they are elevated. And when we see that, then we can see it, right? Like the church is the lens through which we can see the truth.
Right. Exactly. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, you're so
true.
Oh,
so true. I love that.
Yeah, so you've given us a number of resources, Jen, from the Vatican and from a few other websites. Would you just tell us what it is that we're going to be sharing in the show notes?
Yes, so there are a few Vatican links that have the description of the virtues. I've also linked catholiceducation.org and Father Ripperger's site that I believe I mentioned earlier. He has the virtues broken down in a really beautiful way. It's a really nice printout, and that is Sensus Traditionis. I also have given you the link for the promises of the Rosary and the virtues of the Rosary. So I think that's pretty much it for the links. The catholiceducation.org, they have numerous articles on virtues. You can just type in any virtue you want to learn more about, and there are numerous articles there. I've learned a lot about the virtues from that website.
Wow, these are great resources, helpful. Jen. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah. So as we're just kind of starting to wrap up, what's your sense that as we're starting to just process this conversation, what would you like to leave us with today?
I would like for all of the moms homeschooling and dads to take note of what they're actually growing in. Pay attention throughout your day and just see all the opportunities that you have without even meaning to you're practicing virtue, and just be confident in that, and just know that God is working on you in those moments to grow in virtue. And I think we sometimes sell ourselves short as moms, and especially it just, I'm not doing enough, and I need to work on this. And, like I said, we might teach our children a virtue each month, and we're really focusing on that virtue, but we don't even really take into account all the ways we're growing in virtue and the things that we're doing. So just, take note of those things and see how much you're learning and growing and what you're doing and all that you're doing, because you're doing amazing things.
Wow. Beautifully said, Jen. I think that's super important. We just have no idea how much the great teacher is teaching us in all of this as we seek to do his will. So beautiful. Exactly. Jen, thank you so much. I really appreciate everything that you did to pull this together for us. It was so clear and so helpful.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here with you. So thank you for having me again.
Yeah. And it's a little bittersweet because I've interviewed you several times. And as I'm retiring from the show and passing the torch to Caitlin Zara, which will be wonderful for season 7, you and I will talk anyway at other times and places, Jen. It's always a joy. And everybody who's listening, thank you so much for being with us today. We are praying for you. Please pray for us too. God bless you. And that's our show for today. Our program is sponsored by homeschoolconnections.com. Be sure to subscribe to Homeschooling Saints and leave us an honest review. God bless you, and thank you for joining us.